This is Safety Bri, your number one safety geek. Why do we have the behaviors that we do? Superheroes in the workplace, right? All of those things that go into making you an effective safety manager. I love what we do. Motivation, learning, teaching, training, teamwork. I geek out over that just as much as I do safety. Hello, my safety friends. This is Bri, your number one safety geek, and you are listening to the Safety Geek podcast, where today we're going to talk about getting hired as a safety manager. But first, how have you guys been? How have you been? I know, I've been disappeared for 3 months. Don't worry, I didn't get the virus and go into quarantine or anything like that. But the last time I did a podcast, it was January. And I will tell you what happened at the turn of the year was I lost a contractor who was working with me that was doing a lot of my posting work for me. And I said, I'll just do it myself. It's not that big of a deal. Just have to work a couple more hours. And then it was really bumping into my study time. So at the time, I was finishing a class to get certified as a life coach. So I am a certified life coach, specializing in achievement, leadership, and productivity. And I was also studying to take my ASP/CSP. And then that exam was in February. So those of you that have known me for a while, you probably already thought I was a CSP, but I actually ran into a roadblock because I never got my college degree. I am 100% self-taught with safety, just going reading the regulations, taking seminars, classes, things like that over the last 20 years, but I never finished my college degree. And every time I tried to go for it, something would happen within my household, right? So several years ago, 4 years ago, I said, okay, I'm going to finish this college degree thing. And I got my degree in psychology, not safety, because I kind of feel like what we do is psychology related. So I finally got my degree, and because I had to go part-time, so it took me 4 years. I got my degree and I had to wait for it to appear on my transcript before I could apply to take my CSP. And then you have to wait for a slot to be open to take the exam, right? So because I went with a psychology degree, I had to do my ASP and then my CSP. So I did pass my ASP. Amazing. We can get into that. If you have any questions, just message me. I don't want to sound like it was, I didn't find it that difficult, but I think that's because I spent January and February studying. I literally would study and review the math and things that I'm not personally familiar with, probably an hour and a half a day, every day from January and February before I took the exam. So then I was going to sit for my CSP, so I started studying for that. And then what happened? Coronavirus. That's right. So I'm still on hold to take my CSP, but from my understanding, the CSP is a lot more of what my experience is like, so I don't think I'll have any problems with it because it's more about safety management, right? It's about building culture. It's about the management program. It's not about the math and the engineering, which, we'll get into that. So anyway, I was like, let me take 4 weeks off, let me study. And then the 4 weeks turned into 8. And then I tried to do the podcast again myself, as well as get my blog post going and my Facebook Lives and all of that, and realized that everything I'm doing for you guys, all this stuff I'm putting out there, which I absolutely love to do, it doesn't take me long to do a Facebook Live or a monthly webinar or a podcast. But the back end stuff takes a long time. It was literally taking me 38 to 40 hours a week. And these are not things that I charge for. So I was like, I have to do other stuff. And so I ended up biting the bullet and hiring someone full-time to help me. So it has been a game changer. I've spent the last month training her, but now it is just like a game changer. I have so much more time. So we are in the process of getting the podcast caught up. So you will start seeing, so you've been seeing the regular Facebook Lives, you've been seeing the regular blog posts, you've been seeing the monthly webinars in the Facebook group. So now you're going to start seeing the weekly podcasts as well. And this has also freed me up to actually get my training out there. So I am working on, I have 2 trainings, which I'll talk about one in a little bit, but the one I'm working on that I'm very excited about is my training on how you get management commitment and support in your safety program, and how you take every piece of your safety program and change it, just tweak it just a little bit so that way you get management support and commitment. So you'll be hearing about that probably in the next couple months. I'm hoping to release that the week of June 24th, I think is my plan. So anyway, that's what's been going on in the Safety Geek. I'm sorry I was so quiet for so long, but that won't happen again. I realize the value of an employee. I totally do. So let's get going, right? Let's start talking about this. So what I wanted to talk about, and I actually have got several podcasts coming out that I think are going to help you at this current time that we're going through where, a lot of businesses are shuttered. A lot of people are told to work from home, but a lot of people are getting furloughed or laid off as well. I know, like even before coronavirus, I was getting a lot of people telling me that they were job hunting and that they'd want me to review their resume or look at their LinkedIn profile or any of that good stuff. So even before all of this happened, I knew that there was a need out there to help people getting hired as a safety manager. So I know a lot of you might be job hunting or you might not be happy in your current situation. I hear that a lot too. I hear where it's like we talk about management commitment and support and it's just like you're not happy where you are because you can't seem to get it. And then I know a lot of people are worried about being laid off. I have a lot of friends in the corporate world, and sometimes they've been reaching out to me like on Fridays telling me who the layoffs were that week. And it's really sad when it's a company that has multiple locations and they call me up and say, yeah, we laid off this many safety specialists this week, right? They might have kept the safety manager, but they got rid of the safety specialist. So that's kind of sad, right? So I think that this topic is very relevant right now. And I wanted to dive deeper into it, and I can't on here. I'm going to keep it kind of high level, but I have created a workshop series. It is called Getting Hired in a Down Economy, and you can access that at thesafetygeek.com/get hired. In that workshop series, we are going to dive deep into a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about here, but we're going to go even deeper. You're going to walk away being ready to stand apart from the crowd of applicants, because I honestly think that's what we're going to see. So here's the thing. In 2008, our economy went in the crapper, right? And then in 2009, we had the N1H1 virus as well. So during that period, I saw a lot of safety managers get laid off. I saw a lot of people just like companies just said, we need to cut staff and, I can cut the safety manager. That's a high salary compared to an hourly worker. Or, during N1H1, it's like they needed the hourly workers. They didn't need the safety manager. At least that's what they said. To me, it's stupid. We can totally go on that tangent. But anyway, that's what I saw happen a lot, right? So when you have safety managers that have been laid off, when the economy comes back, especially this time around, the economy is going to come back once, they get a vaccine and they have treatment and all of that good stuff where people feel safe going back out into the world and doing more shopping and buying more things. The economy will come back, but it's going to come back slightly smaller, and it's going to take a little bit of time for those safety jobs to come back. And in the meantime, what do you do? And that's what I want to address today, because this is your profession. So yes, you could make a pivot and go work and do something else. I've heard of people doing that, and that's fine. But if you're like me, that will never be good enough. I absolutely love what I do. I wouldn't want to work in any other field besides being a barista at Starbucks because I've got to know how they make my latte. But other than that, I would not want to be working as anything else. And if you're that way, what I want to help you with is how to make sure that if you're laid off, you can get a job in this field. If you are currently not working, I want to show you how to make sure that you get a job doing what you want to do. And if you're not happy in your current situation, knowing how to look for work in a field that you love and making sure that you stand out is important, because then you have options. That's the big deal, right? You want to have options. You don't want to feel stuck like I'm working for this crappy employer that has no management support or commitment for safety, and I've been trying to change it for 5 years, and it's not changing, but I'm stuck here because I'm getting paid well and there are no jobs out there. That's not really true. I mean, really question yourself if you're thinking that, because it's not true. There are jobs out there. there may not be as many jobs as there are applicants. So that's what you need to work on, is how can you make sure, like, you can do the job, you're experienced to do the job, and you submit your resume. How can you make sure that that resume, when they get it on the other end, they go, wow, oh my gosh, I've got to talk to this person. This person is on the top of my list. That is the goal of your resume, my friends. And that's what I'm not seeing when I look at LinkedIn profiles or when I look at safety manager resumes. I have literally looked at hundreds of safety manager resumes, hundreds, because when I was a regional safety manager, I was in charge of 39 locations. Each one had their own safety manager. And whenever they had to hire somebody, I was their first step. The resumes came to me. I did the first interview, and then it went to the location for them to choose their final person. I have personally hired over 20 different people for various roles. And some of them have turned out to be like amazing people. But anyway, so I know what hiring managers are looking for. I've been there. I've been in their shoes. I have worked with so many HR managers and talent acquisitions. I know what they're looking for. And the most important thing that you can do when you're looking to get hired as a safety manager is to impress them when you give them their resume, and then continue to make those connections and continue to impress them until they make a decision. Because what it'll ultimately come down to is 2 or 3 people, and then whoever has the best connection with that team, right? So what happens is you end up with a handful of people that all of them can do the job. It doesn't matter who you pick. Any one of these 5 or 6 people can do this job at this facility. So then the decision falls down to, who do I feel most comfortable with? The way I like to put it, and when I was just hiring my employee, I was down to 3 people, and all 3 of them could have done the job. All 3 of them were amazing. But I said, okay, who do I want to go on a 4-hour car ride with? Because that's the person that I want on my team, is somebody I can hang out with. So your hiring manager or your team that you're trying to get that job with, they're thinking the same thing. So you have to learn the skills to stand out and really wow them, to get your foot in the door and make that connection, and then be one of those 4 or 5 people that they're going to end up at the end choosing from. Because right now you're submitting your resume, and if it's not impressing them or it's not really any different than anybody else, it's a crapshoot. You're ending up being 1 out of 100. I want you to be 1 out of 5. 1 out of 5 that's going to get chosen for that job. So that's why I created the workshop, and those are the things that we're going to talk about in the workshop. But there are things that you can do, like if, let's say the workshop's not for you, I totally get that. So here are things I want you to think about if you're looking for work. First, I want you to take a step back and look at it from the employer's perspective. I'm an employer. Let's say that you're sitting there and you go, okay, I'm an employer and I'm hiring a safety manager. What do I need to do? I mean, they know, like, what am I looking for? What you have to realize is they're not 100% sure what we do. Nobody really knows, right? We know what we do, but everybody else on the management team, they just want to be like, cut the injuries, handle claims, do investigations, make sure we have policies, keep us, good with regulations. That's all they really know. They don't understand that we change behaviors. We make your work more efficient. We increase productivity. We increase quality. They don't get that. So because they don't understand that part of it, what happens is when they go to hire a safety manager, they don't know what to look for and they don't know what to ask for. So unless you're applying for a position where they have a corporate safety department like I worked for, where we were reviewing the resumes for the hiring managers, let's say that you're just working for a place that doesn't have that, then they're not going to know what to look for. And what are they going to do? They're going to throw in, well, I guess you need to have this many years experience, because if you have that, then I know I won't have to train you. You know what you're doing. And I guess you should have some education. There's got to be a safety degree, so let's throw that into the qualifications. And I've heard of this CSP thing, so let's say that they need a CSP. And anybody who has studied or taken the ASP, CSP, GSP test, all of that, you will all know that half of the stuff to get that certification is not relevant for many, many industries. Many industries. Like if I needed an electrician, or if I had electrical safety issues and I needed to hire an electrician, I would hire an electrician to do the work. So I didn't need to know that much about electrical safety. I needed to know the basics, not this whole like parallel circuits and all of that stuff that was on the exam. So that's what I'm saying. Like ventilation, I'd hire a ventilation person. I didn't need to know it myself. So a lot of the stuff on those certifications aren't relevant in the workplace, but the hiring managers don't know any better. So they put those certifications down as a requirement. All right. So that's the employer's perspective. Now I want you to look at it from your perspective. You understand that safety is safety. It doesn't matter where you've worked in the past. It doesn't matter. You could do safety regardless of who you're working for and what industry it's in. So the hiring manager thinks, well, we make widgets. I need someone who has experience working at a place that makes widgets. That's not true. Safety is safety is safety. You get me, right? So, and even if you are weak, let's say that you got hired for an electrical contractor to be their safety department, to be their safety person, and you don't have that much electrical safety experience, you can learn it. You could probably learn it in a week. It's not that difficult. It's just focus and training and studying, really. I mean, that's why they teach electrical safety classes. So anyway, you also know the job requires management support to be successful. You know that. You know that it's dependent upon that, where the employer might be thinking like, just me hiring you means I support you. It's like, no, that's not all of it, right? And you also know that a lot of the certifications they're asking for are BS. So remember that. And you know that you are a great leader. You know that you're a great trainer, and you know that you could do the job. But you might not be meeting those qualifications that are listed on the job posting. That doesn't mean you don't apply. If you know you could do the job and you know that you're a good leader, still apply for the job. We're going to wow them with your resume and cover letter. Believe me. All right. So, and there's some statistics out there about like most men will apply for a job if they meet like 60% of the qualifications, and women won't apply until they meet 85%. I'm telling you all, you need a job, you're applying for it. Okay? Believe me. I was hiring, even just recently, when I was hiring my new employee, I said I want somebody with social media and content management experience. That isn't who I ended up hiring, but she's amazing. Because there's other skills that you bring to the table that will make you amazing too. To where if you don't have your CSP, then who cares? You don't have your college degree, who cares? Right? Because you're bringing so much more to the table. So you're going to apply anyway. So what you need to do is educate the employer that you're applying for and explain what safety does and why you're the right person for the job in the cover letter, in your resume, in, LinkedIn articles that you might post, right? And if you don't have the qualifications, you can show off your accomplishments of things that you've done at previous employers. So this is the time to brag. Big time. You got to talk about everything you do and how it applies to them. And that's the big key there. They only care about themselves. That hiring manager is looking at your resume going, how are they going to help me? They're not going to, if you're pointing that out in the beginning, how you can help that company in your cover letter, it's easier for them to disregard that you might not have the years of experience they're requiring, the education, the certifications, anything like that. The other thing is you want to promote all your other skills, right? Because safety nowadays, especially now with the virus and the slowdown and everything, safety is going to have to wear multiple hats. So when you show them that not only can you train on safety, you can also train on food safety, you can train on HR topics, you can help write SOPs for the operations team, you could do security, and do a hazard vulnerability assessment and develop their security plan. You have skills in negotiating and purchasing because you've negotiated prices on your PPE, haven't you? Put that in there. You could do customer support because technically that's what we do, right? So if you think about it, customer support is somebody having a problem with the product and complaining to customer support to get a resolution. So when someone has a problem with safety, they complain to you and then you develop a resolution to it. You have customer support experience. So throw that in there too. So you don't want to just list it as a bullet point. Hey, I can do all this stuff. But in your cover letter, you can be like, hey, I was looking at your website and I see that, food safety or quality is super important to you. I can use my training skills to help in those areas as well, compared to another resume where it doesn't even mention that. Who am I going to call? I'm going to call the one that can offer more to the company. Okay. So every step of the hiring process, this is what I want you to think about is how can you help that company? Now, the steps of the hiring process, the way that I see it is you have your resume, and this is where you're showing off what you can do that is relevant to them. And you can have multiple versions of your resume. And in the workshop, we'll get into that you can have a fancy version and a plain version. And you use your resume in different ways depending upon the situation. Next is the cover letter. And this is where you show that, hey, I looked into the company. So we'll talk about how you do some background on the company, pick out some key things, and throw that into your cover letter. So you want to say, hey, I looked at the company and I see that you need this, this, and this, and I have these skills. It's not about you. Nothing about this is you. It's about how you're going to help them. So you always want to talk about what their pain points are. So you're always wanting to look at it from the perspective of the employer. And next is your LinkedIn profile, because what'll happen, and I guarantee you this happens, your resume catches their eye. They're like, oh my gosh, cover letter's amazing. Let me check out his LinkedIn. That's the next step. They're gonna cyber stalk you on Facebook too, and Instagram, and Pinterest, and TikTok, and YouTube. So you need to clean that stuff up. You need to brand yourself so what you're commenting on, what you're posting and everything like that, it is not looking detrimental to you. And I'm not saying I'm sure if you look at my profile, there are definitely some pictures of me at some wine tastings and stuff like that. I'm not saying you got to be goody two shoes, but you have to be representative of their team. If they look at your social profile and go, yeah, that person's not going to fit in with our team, your door has just been shut. Okay, so clean up those social profiles. And the next stage is the interviewing process, right? And you want to connect with them in your interview. It is not about just sitting there waiting for them to ask you questions. It's about being friendly and approachable and making a connection with that hiring manager. Because I'll tell you right now, if they're going to come to you with a set of questions that they probably ask everybody. You want to flip that, on its head and just say, we're just going to have a conversation and talk. Because by the time you got to that interview process, they already know that you're qualified for the job. What exactly are they going to ask you? What's the equation to determine ventilation for, the electrical or the welding area or something? They're not going to ask you that kind of stuff. They're asking you questions to determine your personality. They're asking you questions to determine, are they going to get along with my team? Do they seem intelligent enough? Do they seem like, yeah, this resume matches? I will tell you, there was this guy who was hired. I was not involved in his hiring, but I did train him. And I got sent his resume, and his previous experience was about the same level as me, but the company he worked for had gone bankrupt and had been out of business for several years. Well, not years at that point. I think maybe like 8 months or something like that. Now it's several years they've been out of business. And super, super personable guy. Like you would not believe. I would have hired him in a heartbeat with that resume and that personality. There was no way to determine that the whole thing was a lie until I got him into training. And then once I got him into training and I realized he didn't even know what an MSDS was, that's how long ago this was. It's when we had MSDSs. I was like, this is a basic thing that any safety manager would know. And he didn't know what it was or how to manage them at all. That kind of triggered us that he had lied on everything. There was no way of knowing because his resume was the companies he worked for were out of business. There was no way to do the background checks or anything like that. He was strictly hired because he had an amazing, charismatic personality. Dead serious, guys. Dead serious. That's how important the interview is. So I want to teach you how to make sure that you connect with these people. And I will recommend to you, read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Very old book. I want to say, every time Carnegie. I believe it was Dale Carnegie who wrote it. I'm always wanting to say Rockefeller, but I think it's Dale Carnegie that wrote it. Very old book, but well worth the read and still relevant today. And it gives you solid tips in that book, how to make those connections with people, right? Now, the other things that I want to talk to you about was making sure that you get a job that you want to like. Because especially if you're in a position right now where you don't like your employer, you don't want to jump into work with another employer that you don't like. So there are questions you can ask them in the interview. And I'll tell you, when I have an interviewee that is asking me questions, that really pipes up my interest. I'm like, ooh, they actually have questions. That's great. So a friend of mine, she was going for an interview the other day and she texted me and she's like, hey, I need a list of questions to ask these people. So I want to give you the ones that I gave her, which was, 1, what do you expect your safety manager to do? Right? So this question, first off, all these questions need to be open-ended, not yes or no questions. So this will kind of give you some insight as to what they expect of their safety manager, right? So key things I would be listening for is that, the safety manager is the coach of the coaches and is not necessarily doing the work. Question number 2, what safety responsibilities does your management team and frontline supervisors have? Or do your management team and frontline supervisors have? So you want them to understand that it's the frontline supervisors who are responsible for safety and not necessarily you. You're just their coach, right? Question number 3, how do you hold your management team accountable for safety? That's an interesting question, right? Accountability is a tricky thing with a lot of management teams. They don't understand how to do it. Number 4, when a frontline supervisor is not enforcing safe work practices, what do you expect your safety manager to do about it? Yeah. This goes back to accountability, right? Because you don't have any authority over the frontline supervisors, but they might expect you to have that authority, right? And last one is, what are their current company communication tools? So you kind of want to know ahead of time that they have a communication cadence. So that way, when you do have to get stuff out there and how you communicate things, that would be a good way to know. So that can give you some key insight as to whether or not you want to work for them. Other things is go after the job you want. You don't have to wait for them to post a job opening to go after the job. You could start networking with the people that work there. You could call their current safety manager and ask for a meetup, right? And you will learn, if they plan on leaving anytime soon. I know it sounds tricky, but I've had meetings with safety managers where they're like, yeah, I'm going to retire in 3 years. Then get a good networking relationship with that company because there will be an opening in a couple of years. You will learn, if they're looking to expand their safety department. And worst case, if there's no way you're going to get hired there, you're making a good network connection. You can network with their HR department as well, right? So think about it. You have a good networking relationship with their HR department. When they go to hire somebody, the HR is immediately going to think about you. And then chat with the employees of that company just to kind of get a feel of their culture. What is it like to work there? Because a lot of times we see these companies from the outside and we think, oh, I'd love to work there. And then when you hear about the inside culture, you're like, oh, no, don't want to do that. So go after the job you want. Don't wait for them to post it. Just start networking. And you can even write a letter and submit your resume to them before the job is posted and say, look, I know you don't have anything posted right now, but I wanted you to have this on file because I'm really interested in working with your company because I love the culture. I've networked with several people from your company and it just sounds amazing and I am looking for an amazing company to work for. What do you think about that? I mean, shoot, that would be mind-blowing if I received something like that. And I actually have received something like that. We're talking 15 years ago. And I kept it on my desk. And then when a job came open, that was one of the first places I looked. So, all right. So anyway, remember that sometimes we are so desperate that we will just take any job. And sometimes we do it just for the pay. And sometimes we think, well, I'll take the job, but I'll be able to change them. And yes, culture change is definitely possible, but you have to be in it for the long haul. It takes 3 to 5 years to change a culture. So you have to be in it for the long haul. So just know what you're getting into and that you always have the choice to keep looking. Always. All right. So I was in a bad situation one time and I wanted to walk out. It was just awful. I had 6 trainers and 4 or 5 safety managers under me, plus 2 administrators under me. And they were undercutting me, the executive staff was, and firing my people without me knowing and hiring their own people as replacements. It was awful. It was just an awful situation. And I wanted to just walk out, especially when I think my last straw was they hired an employee that had a DUI as in a driving position. And I was like, that's it, I'm done. But what I realized is that if I walked out, the only person I was hurting was me. So instead, what you want to do is work on yourself and make yourself the best applicant that you can, and then just go after the job that you want. Now, I hope that you decide to dive deeper in this and that you sign up for my workshop, Getting Hired in a Down Economy, because I'm super excited about it. There's so much great information in our first live class. This is a live workshop, even though you will get a replay if you can't attend live, because I can never pick a time that's going to match everybody's schedule. That's just impossible. But you will get access to a replay if you can't attend live. And our first one is coming up on April 24th. But I am super excited about this because I really, really think you guys need this information. So many times people are sending me resumes and I'm just like, dude, you need some work on this. And we're not taught these things. We're taught, that you list everything like it was an application on your resume. We're not taught the skills to stand out, to make sure that our resume and our cover letter and everything is at the top of the list. I actually took a resume writing class in college when I was finishing up my degree. They didn't teach us that stuff at all. They taught us to dress nicely for the interview, and they practiced us on interview questions. And that was about it. I want to teach you how to shine, my friends, to where any job that you apply for, you get your foot in the door and you impress them. That's what I want to teach you. Alrighty, my friends, that is all that I have for now. The link for the workshop series is thesafetygeek.com/get hired. I hope to see you in class. Otherwise, I will catch you here next week because I promise we will be dropping podcasts weekly again. You guys have an amazing day and wash your hands. Bye. You can check out the show notes and links for this week's episode at thesafetygeek.com. If you like this podcast, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. There are occasional bonus episodes that I don't always advertise, and you won't want to miss them. One more favor, leave a review on that app too. It helps others find the show. Thanks. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to talk to you next week.